Fox, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 1, 2. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tim, what's wrong? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 22, 18.
22, well done. And
Okay, now.
Where's he gonna walk in? Walk in. If I have your attention, please. Good evening, my name is Scott Atkins. I'm the chair of the Blackhawk County Republicans. It's my pleasure to do a brief bio and introduction of Governor Christie this evening. Chris Christie was sworn in as governor of New Jersey on January 19, 2010, and was reelected to a second term on November 5, 2013. Under Governor Christie, New Jersey has taken on the biggest and toughest challenges with real-world solutions and bipartisan cooperation. He has implemented an aggressive reform agenda to restore fiscal integrity, accountability to state and local government, lowered New Jersey's taxes, property taxes, reformed the state's pension and health benefit system, and improved public education to ensure every child has access to a quality education. A lifelong New Jerseyan, I love that, New Jerseyan, that's good, I like that. Governor Christie has a deep affection for and strong commitment to the state in which he has spent his entire life. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Chris Christie.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. It's great to be back here. I want to thank you all for taking the time to come. You know, the last time I was here was to go to the UNI Dome. Mary Pat and I are alums of the University of Delaware. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but that's when we were here. That's when we were here the last time. We won the last time we were here, and I hope we're going to win this time too. So it's great. It's one of the greatest places to go and watch college football, though. We really enjoyed ourselves when we came out here that time. Yeah, I'm sure we did, right? Yeah, we did. Although I will tell you, we came out with no great expectations, and we came away doing okay. And we had a quarterback who has had a decent pro career now. A young guy named Joe Flacco was playing for Delaware at the time, so it was an anomaly. Don't you worry about it. The UNI's doing just fine. And I'm happy to be back here. I also want to take a moment to introduce the person who's been accompanying me ever since my days at the University of Delaware. Over 30 years ago, we went to college together, and we've been married for the last 29. The First Lady of New Jersey is with me tonight. Mary Pat Christie is here tonight. All right, so I've been in Iowa all day today, traveling around. I'll be around Iowa all day tomorrow. We're happy to be back here. As you know, I started coming here in the fall of 2010 when a good friend of Iowa called me at my office one day. My secretary came in and said, Governor Terry Branstad's on the phone for you. I said, Governor Branstad? Now, I said, Governor Branstad knows me? I just been governor for about 8 months, and I said, sure, I'll take that call. So I got on the call, and Governor Branstad was on the other end, and he said, listen, Governor, we've never met, but I'm in the midst of a really tough race against an incumbent Democratic governor here in Iowa, trying to win back the governorship of Iowa, and I think Iowans would really like to meet you, and I need to raise some money between now and the end of this election. I wonder if you might be willing to come and appear at a fundraiser for me in West Des Moines. And I had the son on the phone. I said, is this really Terry Branstad? And he said, well, of course it is. And I said, gosh, I said, you know, I remember following you as governor when I was in college. That probably wasn't the right thing to say. But I couldn't believe that somebody as famous as Terry Branstad knew who the heck I was. So I said, sure, of course I'll come out and help you. And we did. We had a great night that night in West Des Moines. Over 1,000 people came. We raised over $500,000 for his effort. And luckily for the people of Iowa, you got Terry Branstad back as governor, not once but twice since then. He's a great friend. He's done a great job for Iowa. This is my second weekend in a row in Iowa. I was here last weekend also, and I got the opportunity to walk around Iowa with Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds. She's really, as you know, an outstanding person. Has been a great friend to me and to Mary Pat, and a good running mate. Yes, she is a good running mate for Terry, and she might be a good running mate for anybody, right? She is an outstanding person, and it's been my honor to be here, not only to campaign for her and Terry in 2010 and 14, but to come here a number of times, as you might recall, too, for Mitt Romney in 2011 and in 2012. And, man, wouldn't this country be a lot better off if Mitt Romney were the President of the United States right now, rather than the guy we've got. And so it's different, though, when you come for yourself. I've been coming to Iowa for other people now for 5.5 years. Now, all of a sudden, it's time for me to come for myself. And so I need to make my case to all of you. Now, when I came here 4 years ago for Governor Romney, I remember any number of people in Iowa saying to me, oh, Governor, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. You know, I don't like the field. There's not enough people to consider. You know, we don't have enough good candidates who want to offer themselves up. So what has happened is all your fault. There are now 17 of us vying for the Republican nomination for president. And so Iowa's going to be even more important than it's ever been, because you've got a lot of people to work your way through now. A lot of people to consider, and who's going to be the best person? Not only, well, okay, I go for you. That's good. All right, case closed. Let's move on. Who's going to be the best person to represent our party? Who's going to be the best person to beat Hillary Clinton in November of 2016, which we have to do. So you have a lot of work to do. So let me get to work and then get to work answering your questions. A lot of things we've talked about already in this campaign, and there's a story that just came out in the Weekly Standard today that said we have been the most detailed, specific, and substantive campaign of all 17. And I'm glad for that, because 7 years ago, a majority of the American people bought a bumper sticker for president. Hope and change. Hope and change. And the majority of people who voted for that really didn't know, I suspect, what they were going to get. And now we've seen what we're going to get. The worst economic recovery from a recession since World War II. Higher taxes. Government in every corner of your life, in every way it can possibly be there, interfering and taking away authority and liberty and freedom from you. And a place where America's role in the world has been so diminished that our allies no longer know whether to trust us, and our adversaries don't fear us. If he had said that was going to be the result of hope and change, I think there might have been a different result in that election in 2008 and the one in 2012. So this time we've got to be very specific. You've got to know what you're buying. Can't buy a bumper sticker anymore. And so we've been very specific on a bunch of issues. And I'm going to talk about two of them off the top, and then the rest of them I suspect we'll get to in your questions. The first is this. In a presidency that has been incredibly disappointing from my perspective, the worst thing this president has done is what he's done in the last 17 days. In the last 17 days, this agreement he has signed with Iran is the worst thing that's happened from a foreign policy perspective in this country in recent memory. And here's why. Let's remember who these folks are. They're the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. 36 years they have been chanting death to America, death to Israel, burning our flag. 36 years ago, most of the people in this room are old enough to remember, as I do, that they took our hostages and held them for 444 days. They caused unrest in the Middle East through Hezbollah, through their sponsorship of the Houthis in Yemen. This is a bad group of folks. And this president has decided that it's okay for this group of folks to be on a glide path to obtaining a nuclear weapon. And all the things that are contained in this agreement are a loss for the United States. He's going to lift the conventional arms embargo against Iran in 5 years. He's going to lift the ban against ballistic missile technology for Iran in 8 years. Now remember, you don't need those ballistic missiles to shoot them at Israel. That's meant to be shot over the ocean at us. And worse than all that is this is a president who 17 days ago stood in front of the American people and lied to us. He lied to us on the most important thing in this agreement. He stood up 2 weeks ago Tuesday and he said, this is not about trust of the Iranians. This is about verification. And we have anytime, anywhere access in Iran. When we read the agreement, what did it really say? What it really said was, you got it. What it really said was, we can ask to inspect someplace, then they can object. And if they object, then it goes to an arbitration panel. And then that arbitration panel, where Iran has a vote, by the way, they get 24 days to review whether or not we should be allowed to inspect where we want to inspect. Well, listen, I'm a former prosecutor. I was the United States Attorney for New Jersey for 7 years before I became the governor of New Jersey. And I can tell you this. That'd be like if I was investigating a crime and I turned up enough evidence for probable cause and I went to a judge and I got a search warrant from a judge to go and search someone's home. And I knocked on the front door of that home and I said, I have a search warrant here because I believe you're engaged in criminal conduct. I'll be back in 24 days to search your house. See if I can have any evidence of that. Well, I tell you this, even the dumbest criminal in New Jersey, and by the way, we pride ourselves on having some of the dumbest criminals in America. But even you do know that, and even the dumbest criminal in New Jersey would get that evidence out of their house if I gave them 24 days to do it. Here's the bad news. The Iranians are not dumb. Not by a long shot. They're going to cheat on this agreement, and they're going to hide their cheating by moving things all over that country of theirs and having us play hide the ball with them. They'll hide the ball. We'll just keep chasing until they get what they want. And by the way, they also get $100 to $150 billion. Now, if you think they're going to use that to build highways, everybody, you haven't been watching the Iranians the last 36 years. They're going to use it to foment unrest and terrorism, both in their region and here in America. This is an awful deal. And the Congress of the United States should do their job, which is stand up and say no to this. Now, the president's very funny, right? He says, I welcome a robust congressional debate. And then 2 sentences later, he says, and if they disagree with me, I'll veto it. Well, there you go. That's somebody who's looking for a robust, informative debate, aren't they? And he wants a robust, informative debate as long as it goes his way. Well, Congress should say no. They should turn it down, and when he vetoes it, they should override that veto. And Republicans and Democrats should come together and say, Mr. President, go back to the table and do better. And he now says, well, this is the best deal we could have gotten. I'm glad Ronald Reagan didn't feel that way in Reykjavik in the mid-'80s with Mikhail Gorbachev. Because lots of people were pressuring Ronald Reagan to make that deal, and he didn't. He looked at Gorbachev and he said, I'm not trusting you. We need real verification of what the Soviets will do. When Gorbachev wouldn't give it to him, Reagan said, thank you very much. When you're serious, you got my number. He got up, shook hands, he walked away. And what happened? A year later, Gorbachev was back at the table with a better deal for the United States. Ronald Reagan understood how to negotiate. I wouldn't let this guy buy a car for me. I mean, can you imagine the way Barack Obama would buy a car for you? Right, he'd go into the dealership, say, look at my friend here. My friend here is not going to leave this showroom tonight without a car. Now let's negotiate price. You know what you wind up with? A new car and empty pockets. And that's what America wound up with him negotiating with Iran. So we need to stop it. Because in the end, this is about our children, our grandchildren's safety and their future. We do not want a nuclearized Middle East. It's tough enough to deal with the Middle East now without nuclear weapons being held by all these Arab countries. They start all having nuclear weapons, it's going to get real interesting, everybody, and not in a good way. Second thing I want to talk about is turn back home. Because we need some real honesty about entitlements in this country. Right now, 71% of our federal budget is spent on entitlements and debt service. 71%, 71 cents of every dollar we spend in the federal government is spent on entitlements and debt service. Just give you some sense of perspective on that. 55 years ago when Jack Kennedy was elected president, 26% of the federal budget was spent on entitlements and debt service. It's completely flipped. And here's the problem. Even with all that spending we're doing, our major entitlement programs are heading towards insolvency. The government says Social Security will be insolvent in 15 years. Harvard and Dartmouth just came out with a study that says that's wrong. It's half that. It's 7 to 8 years. And so people ask Harvard and Dartmouth, well, how could you come to that conclusion? Why is the government wrong? And this will sound very familiar for the government, right? They said, well, they only made 2 major mistakes at the Social Security Administration figuring this out. They overestimated fertility and underestimated life expectancy. It's a bad combination for Social Security. When you overestimate the number of people going to be paying in and underestimate the life expectancy of the people who are getting paid, that leads to a big problem. Now, why do I want to deal with this? Not because I think this is a winning political issue, right? Over the course of time, people have been advised all the way around this country, do not talk about entitlements in a federal campaign. It is the third rail of American politics. You touch it and you die. So here's what we're doing. We're hugging it. We're going to hug it because we have to. Because if we're going to tell the truth to the American people, we got to deal with this. We've gotten too much of that advice from political consultants who tell you not to do this. We got to stop listening to the political consultants and start making common sense in this country. And common sense is we need to deal with this. So why? Well, here's the thing. It starts with good news. We're all living longer. And we're living a better quality of life for a longer period of time. The average life expectancy for a woman now in America is 83 years old. The average life expectancy for a man is 79 years old. I see a few of you ladies smiling. Now listen, be careful now, because 10 years ago, the gap was 6 years. Now it's 4. We're gaining on you. And that 4-year vacation you were expecting at the end of your life where you could be rid of us, it may be gone in another decade or so. You may be stuck with us the entire time. But we're living a better quality of life and a longer life. Why does that impact this? For the reason I talked about before. These programs were designed when people's life expectancy was just to their mid-60s. Now we're living 15 to 20 years longer. That's a blessing. But we need to adjust these programs to deal with that. So how are we going to do it? I have a 12-point plan on this, and here is the best news of the night. I'm not going through all 12 points. Okay, we'll go through 2 really quickly. And it applies both to Social Security and Medicare. First, we need to raise the retirement age. We need to increase it 2 years, but listen, we will phase it in over 25 years. That means eligibility age will go up 1 month a year for 25 years. So when I'm the Republican nominee for president next July, and Hillary Clinton is telling you that Chris Christie has a plan to throw grandma and grandpa off the cliff, tell Hillary Clinton that that has to be the highest cliff anyone's ever been thrown off in the world if it takes 25 years for you to land. All right, so 1 month a year for 25 years. That means anyone who's on Social Security now or anywhere close to Social Security is not really going to be affected by this too much. But I'll tell you who it'll affect, my generation and our children's generation. And what it's going to do is get them to prepare to work a little bit longer, but it's also going to make a much more solvent Social Security program over the long haul to deal with continued growth in life expectancy. Second thing on Social Security is I'm going to propose we means test Social Security. So what exactly do I mean by that? Here it is. If you have $4 to $5 million in liquid assets, I'm not talking about your home. This is money that you have invested, and that throws off $200,000 or more in retirement income from your investments. Question I want to ask you is, do you really need a Social Security check? If you're making $200,000 a year or more in retirement income, do you really need that check? I'd suggest you don't. That it's not going to change your lifestyle one bit. Now, I understand the argument. Hey, Governor, I paid into the system. I want my money back. Well, if you need that money, you're getting it back under our plan. But if you don't we want to have that money there for the people who really need it? The people who also paid into the system, who worked hard and played by the rules, but weren't as successful as you. This country gave us the opportunity to be this successful, and I commend those people who were. But Social Security was supposed to always be for this reason. We didn't want anybody who worked hard and played by the rules and paid into the system to grow old in poverty, to have to choose between heat and rent and food. If you're making $200,000 a year or more in retirement income from investments, you're not picking between heat, rent, and food. You're not. And bless you for it. But this has always been a country that has said, for those people who work hard and play by the rules, we're going to make sure that they're taken care of. We need to do this now. Because the only other alternative is a massive tax increase now. And here's my thing. You know, I've had people say to me, why don't you take the cap off Social Security? It stops at $118,000 a year right now. Why don't you take the cap off? Why do we want to give this government more money? I mean, seriously, these are the folks who said that Social Security was a trust fund, right? Remember, Al Gore said it's in a lockbox. Well, I've seen the lockbox, everybody. There's a stack of IOUs. There's no cash in the lockbox. The federal government is taking your payroll tax money now, spending it on other things, and putting an IOU in the Social Security system. Well, why would we want to give people who have managed your money that way more of your money? Why don't we try to make the savings on the expense side rather than on the revenue side? Just makes more sense. I was in New Hampshire last week, and I had a 23-year-old guy come up to me after our town hall meeting, and he said to me, Governor, thank you for talking about entitlements. He said, because I just started working, and he said, when I get my pay stub and I see that FICA withdrawal from my paycheck, I say to myself, I can't believe how I'm getting ripped off because Social Security will never be there for me. He really believes that Social Security won't be there for him. And by the way, if we keep managing it the way we are now, it won't be. He'll be right. Let's make him wrong. Let's make the investment he's making there for him if he needs it. Same thing on Medicare, by the way. Raise the eligibility age 2 years, phase it in over 25 in the same way. And on means testing, if you, same thing, $4 to $5 million, $200,000 in retirement income. Right now, for that person, we subsidize your Medicare premium 75%. I say let's just subsidize the Medicare premiums for those folks 10%. They still get somewhat of a subsidy for the money they've put in, but they'll pay more for their Medicare coverage. They have the money to do it. They have the ability to do it. I believe they should do it in order to make sure that the system is solvent. Now, none of these things are wildly popular things to be talking about, right? What you want to be talking about when you're running for President of the United States is what you're going to give people. That's what it's been like in this country for a long time. We've been given. But you understand, when we give, there's only two places we can take from. Your pocket and borrowing from the Chinese. Okay? I think we need to stop doing both. I think we seek to keep our hands out of your pocket and stop borrowing money from the Chinese. So if we do those things, we got a chance to really make this country back into a place where opportunity is available for everybody, and that the only thing that determines your success is the ingenuity that you show and how hard you work. See, my parents always told me growing up, said, Christopher, if you work hard enough, you can be anything. I want to be able to say that honestly to my kids too, and I think you do as well. And unless we make these changes and lots of others that we'll talk about, we won't be able to do it. So I'm running for president because I'm optimistic, because I think we can make a difference. I wouldn't be out here otherwise. So let's get to some questions. There's only one rule. You raise your hand, I call on you. That's it. Not like other town halls, we have to write down your questions beforehand, give them to my staff, have them read them. I'm going to say, he likes to answer this one, but he doesn't like to answer this one. Now, we answer all comers. So let's start with that lady who was the first one with her hand up in the back there.
You were talking about throwing money at things. For education reform, are you in favor of introducing competition through school choice?
You bet I am. Question was, am I interested and supportive of putting competition into our K-12 school system through school choice? Yes, I am. Not only am I interested in it, we've done it in New Jersey. We set up a school choice program in New Jersey. It is oversubscribed. It is oversubscribed for folks to be able to send their child to the school they want to send them to. And I'm proud of what we've done there. We can do even more, and we should do even more, except every day of every week that I've been governor of New Jersey, I am in hand-to-hand mortal combat with the teachers union. And they don't want choice, you see, because choice is competition, and competition means you got to perform and give results. And the teachers union is not about results. They're about building their coffers with more members. And they're about defending the worst of those members. See, the best don't need defense. The best teachers in our school system, we carry them on our shoulders out of there every day. We love the best teachers. But see, the teachers union tells us that we can't do that. The biggest barrier to school choice in America is the National Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers. And let's stop there for a second. It's now 16, 17 months or so from the general election for president. The American Federation of Teachers has already announced their endorsement. There's 17 of us running. They don't know which one it's going to be. They said, nope, none of those look good. Like 4 or 5 running on the Democratic side. Nope, none of those look good. There's only one. Her Highness, Hillary Clinton. And let me tell you this, they didn't endorse her 17 months out because she isn't bought and paid for. She will stop school choice in this country. She will intrude the federal government even more into the everyday decisions that local school boards want to make and parents and teachers want to make to educate their child. They did not endorse her, and they will not be her biggest donor because she hasn't already told them they have a blank check. What we need in this country is a president who will stand up to those folks, and I've been standing up to them now for 6 years. I was the first one to do it. The first one to do it. And by the way, in New Jersey, they collect $140 million in mandatory dues a year. And they don't pay a nickel towards teacher salary, teacher pension, or teacher health care. Not a nickel. All that money is a slush fund to reward their friends and to hurt their enemies. And you are looking at somebody who has felt the receiving end of that 2x4. In the years, not my election year in 2009 or my re-election year in 2013, but in the years in between, they spent $20 million in negative TV, radio, and internet advertising against me in non-election years. This is what these folks do. They want to intimidate. Well, guess what? I won the first time. I won the second time by even a bigger margin than I won the first time, even after all their abuse. They're still fighting me and suing me and taking me to court every day now. I continue to fight them. And when I'm President of the United States, I'm going to be their worst nightmare. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Christine Carpenter from the Beyond Pink Team, which is a local breast cancer group, and we're a member organization of the National Breast Cancer Coalition. And I have something you can do. Would you endorse Breast Cancer Deadline 2020? It's what it is just asking you to make breast cancer and knowing how to end breast cancer a priority to the American people. And there's no financial agreement. You don't have to give anything. It's just saying you think that breast cancer is knowing how to end breast cancer is an important thing to get done.
Listen, I absolutely will do that. My mom was a breast cancer survivor. She diagnosed with breast cancer in 1980. And it was a very difficult cancer and a very poor prognosis back in 1980. The treatments we have today are significantly better 35 years later than they were then. So through the grace of God and prayer and good doctors, my mom survived her breast cancer. But so I'm really familiar with this issue and this problem on a personal basis. So
Yeah.
you
Thank
bet.
you.
I care deeply about it. Thank
Yeah,
you for
thank you
raising it.
very much.
You're very welcome. Yes, sir.
Could you address the issue in this country, I think, that concerns a lot of people in this room, and that's the selective, the way that the government selectively looks at laws and how they enforce the laws. Please be succinct on that.
I sure will. I'm getting a little turmoil the last couple of days on this topic, as you might have seen. Listen, I'm a law and order guy. I'm a former prosecutor. The laws on the books need to be enforced. I take an oath of office as governor, and I'll take the same oath as president. And it says that I swear to enforce the laws of the United States and the state of New Jersey. It doesn't say I swear to enforce the laws that I like. It says I swear to enforce the laws. And in this country, under this president, we have a new level of lawlessness. There's a law on the books in this country making marijuana illegal. There is. It's a federal law on the books. It's been on the books for a long time. Marijuana in this country is illegal. I don't care whether you like marijuana or you don't like marijuana. It's illegal. Yet this president, on his watch, has said, well, if you're Washington State and you want to make it legal, go ahead. If you're Colorado, you want to make it legal, go ahead. You're in the District of Columbia, you want to make it legal, go ahead. You don't like that law? Okay. Don't worry about enforcing it. Now, some people say, well, maybe we should have legalized marijuana, maybe we shouldn't. That's a debate and argument to have in the Congress. And if they want to change the law, send it to the president. He wants to change the law, that's their choice. But you can't just pick and choose which laws you want to enforce. And let me tell you what that gives him license to do. Because you might say, well, I don't really care that much about the marijuana thing, and who's it harming, so who cares? I disagree with you, but some people feel that way. Well, how do you feel about sanctuary cities? How do you feel about over 300 cities in America who say, we don't like the immigration laws, so we're not going to enforce them? And this president says, okay, you don't like those laws, don't enforce them. Well, I think that gets a lot of people hot. A lot of people even hotter than the marijuana stuff. But if you say it's okay on the marijuana, you got no right to say it's not okay on sanctuary cities. The law is the law. So I got a bunch of people now saying, oh, Governor Christie, he's going to hurt himself in Colorado because he says he's going to enforce the marijuana laws. Now, what Governor Christie's saying is, if I'm president of the United States, I'm going to enforce all the laws. And if people want to change them, we got a legal process to change laws. But the president is not a dictator. He's not a king. He's not a monarch. He has to follow the laws that other men and women pass. And he hasn't done that in this administration. And this lawlessness is going to lead to you at some point. Because then there's going to be a law you really like that starts not to being enforced. And how do we decide who gets to pick and choose that? We really want the President of the United States to pick and choose which laws he wants to enforce and not enforce? I don't think that's the kind of country that we want to have. It's certainly not the kind of country I want to have. So that means on the marijuana laws, darn right I'm going to enforce them. On sanctuary cities, I'm going to take funding away from any city that does not want to enforce the federal immigration laws as they've been written. That's how we wind up with the murder we had in San Francisco and a lot of the other problems that we've had over the course of time regarding immigration in this country is because people selectively decide to enforce the law. We got laws, let's enforce them. That's the way I'll be as president, and that's what we need to be talking to each other about.
Like a lot of Iowans, I'm involved in international trade, and I'd like to take you back to China. And watching the situation there, I'm concerned about our position relative to China, both on trade laws, and I'm particularly concerned about the moves the Chinese are making to make their currency, both the trading currency and the reserve currency in that part of the world. That's how the United Kingdom went down, was when the pound sterling quit being the reserve currency. I'd like you to comment on what's going on there.
Sure. Listen, China, as you know, for the folks here in Iowa and all across the country, is a huge trading partner and an important market for us to have access to. By the same token, the United States of America is a market that the Chinese need to have access to as well. And so what we need to do is we need to set fair, level playing field rules for trade between the United States and China. We should not be ceding our position in the world as the world's #1 economic power. And as a result, being the currency that is the currency that needs to be used in trade and reserve currency, that should be something we don't give up. Chinese can have access to our markets and fair access to our markets and to our products that they want. Many, as you know, agricultural products from right here in Iowa make their way to China and help to feed the Chinese. That's a great thing. It's good for Iowa farmers. And I believe that Americans can compete with anyone in the world when it's on a level playing field. Level playing field, everybody's got the same rules, everyone's wearing the same uniforms, then we all go and do what we need to do. But we shouldn't start conceding these things. Now, we can't continue to weaken ourselves, though, economically. This is the worst economic recovery from a recession since World War II. We're continuing to spend more money for the government and less money in the hands of people who help to create jobs. If we put ourselves in a weakened position, we're going to allow the Chinese to take advantage of us. We're not going to have the leverage we need. So we need two things to be able to do this: a growing, vibrant American economy, which I think is only going to be gotten by simplifying this tax code and stop making this a tax code for the wealthy in this country, but make this a tax code that's easy and understandable for regular people. We need to get this regulation off people's back. Everything from the banking regulation in Dodd-Frank to EPA regulation, the waters of America, all of this crazy stuff that this administration has done from a regulatory perspective that right now the Small Business Administration says, their Small Business Administration says it costs $10,000 per employee for a small business to comply with regulation. We're crippling ourselves economically. Secondly, we need a tough leader in the Oval Office who knows how to negotiate, who is not looking to take anybody to the cleaners, but we'll ensure that we won't be taken to the cleaners either, right? And so the currency and our position in the world has to be protected by a strong American president and supported by a strong American economy. We do those two things, we're going to be just fine vis-a-vis the Chinese. But you're right to be concerned about it now, because what's happening is we're ceding that slowly but surely. And when I talk about this entitlement spending, everybody, and borrowing from the Chinese, the more we borrow from them, the more we're, listen, the more you borrow from your bank, the more dependent you're on your bank and their goodwill. This is no different. So we got to be smart, we got to be careful, and we got to be tough. And I will be all three of those things when I'm president. And thank you for your question. I appreciate it. Yes, sir, in the back.
I own a small business here in town. Can you speak more about what you can do to, I guess, level that playing field that you just mentioned for small businesses, either, when it comes to the tax code? I guess, I see a lot of bigger companies that are taking advantage of, certain tax breaks and things like that. How can we make those, I guess, more available or more aware of for small businesses, or what can we do to help small businesses continue to grow and prosper?
Sure, because small businesses are the ones that create the overwhelming majority of jobs in this country. Not the big corporations, it's the small businesses in every town and city in this country. You're right that the tax code is rigged. It's rigged for the wealthy and for big business. And the reason it is because the wealthy and big business are the only folks who can afford to have lobbyists in Washington, D.C. And they get the special little shots in the tax code for them, most of which we don't even notice. But man, they do. And they use them, and they make it a great advantage over somebody like you or other small businessmen and women around this country who, don't have that advantage. So here's what I propose to do. First is to simplify the individual tax code, because a lot of small businesses file under the individual code, right? We got to get rid of all of the deductions and the loopholes other than two: the mortgage interest deduction and the charitable contribution deduction. And in return, we need to lower the rates for everybody. Have three rates, 28 being the highest, 8% being the lowest. And you can do your taxes in 15 minutes, right? You figure out what your income is. Here's how much I paid in home mortgage interest. Here's how much I donated to charity. There's the bottom line. Multiply it by the bracket that's in, send your check, and get out. Imagine how many people I could fire from the IRS after we did that, right? And imagine how much more money you'll have in your pocket. And then, listen, that's no worse for big business. They'll do just fine under that system, but you'll do a lot better. Because all the little special deals, the side deals they got are gone. And now everybody's there, again, based upon the greatness of your idea and the level of your work ethic. And the tax system gets out of your way. And that's really important. We need to do the same thing on the big business side. If you're filing your small business today, who knows? Come up with the next great idea. You wind up opening a whole bunch of businesses. All of a sudden, you're not the small business anymore. You're the big business. That's one of the things that's great about America. Well, what are we going to do for you? We got to lower the rates. 35% is the current corporate business tax rate. It is the highest corporate tax rate in the world. Imagine that, in the place that perfected the free enterprise system. We now have the highest tax rate for businesses in the world. We need to get rid of those loopholes and the deductions, as I talked about, and lower their rate to 25%. That puts us right in the middle of the rest of the world. We don't need to be the lowest. We're the United States. We give people a lot of other advantages to do business here. 330 million person market and free and open markets for you to compete. That's all worth something. Let's stay it down to 25%. And for those businesses that have all these profits offshore, I don't blame them. They don't want to bring the money back because we're one of the few countries, including North Korea, that double taxes. So let's say you're a big company and you have an office in Great Britain. So you make a bunch of money in Great Britain, you pay taxes in Great Britain on that. Then you say, well, I'm an American company, so I'd like to bring those profits home so I can invest them in America and create American jobs. We say, oh, good, we'd like 35% of that. I'll go, oh, no, excuse me, I already paid over here. They go, no, you got to pay me too. We shouldn't be doing that anymore. So we should stop the double taxation, and for one time, we should let them bring that money back in. And right now, it's $2 trillion. $2 trillion that American companies have in accounts offshore. You bring that back and you tax that at 8.75% one time. Because I'll tell you something, 8.75% of $2 trillion is a heck of a lot more than 35% of zero. And so let's bring that money back, and then we could take some of that money and invest it in the infrastructure in this country that needs to be fixed. our roads, our bridges, our tunnels, our mass transit systems that need it without raising taxes on people. Last thing is regulation. As I mentioned before in response to that lady's question, the Obama administration last year issued, in 2014, 81,000 pages of new federal regulation in 1 year. It's the most issued by a government in United States history in 1 year. This president believes that all wisdom resides in Washington, D.C., and to be more specific, he thinks that all wisdom resides between his ears. And that's why you regulate like that. So here's what I would do. I do the same thing in the United States that I did in New Jersey. Because remember, his EPA chief ran the Department of Environmental Protection in New Jersey before Obama became president. So I was used to cleaning up her mess. I cleaned it up in New Jersey. I'll clean it up when I get to Washington. And here's the way you do it. We signed Executive Order number 1 in New Jersey, which will be Executive Order number 1 in Washington when I'm president. Freeze all new regulation from any department or agency of the federal government for 90 days. And in New Jersey, when we did it, we then sent the lieutenant governor out to have open public meetings with small business owners all across the state to say, come and tell us specifically which regulations have been put into effect by our predecessor that has made your life miserable, more expensive, and hasn't done anything good for the public. Come bring them. And they did, from all over the state. And in the first year, we got rid of 1/3 of all the regulations that were put into effect by our predecessor. That immediately lifted a burden off small business owners in our state. The other thing we need to do at the federal level is to set a rule that's called the net zero rule. At least that's what I call it. I like it. It's the net zero rule. Means if I'm going to issue 1,000 pages of new regulation, I got to sunset 1,000 pages of old regulation. We cannot add to this beast any longer. And so any new regulation that I think I got a great idea and I got an issue regulation on it, okay, well then find the idea with just as many pages you're going to get rid of. And the last thing is this. This president signed executive orders that I think violate the spirit of what this gentleman's question was. Executive orders by a president that have gone well beyond what his legal authority is, in my opinion. So after I'm elected president, I will tell the group of lawyers I'm bringing to the White House, here's your job during the transition. Go through every executive order this president has signed, and on day 1, I want you to have a stack of executive orders of my own rescinding these Obama executive orders on day 1 so everybody knows there is a new boss in town who's going to put the people in charge of this government again and not the other way around. That's the way we help small business. Yes, ma'am. Take mine. Excuse me, sir.
Kind of 2 questions. One is, what do you perceive as Hillary's greatest weakness in the general election? And then where are you going to be next Thursday night?
All right. We'll start with next Thursday night. Easily. I'm going to be on the stage in Cleveland debating with 9 other really good Republicans about the future of our country. So I'm looking forward to being in Cleveland next Thursday night. Hillary Clinton's biggest weakness is really an offshoot of that gentleman's question. She believes that government creates jobs. I believe the American people create jobs. And that's the biggest weakness she has. You know, when they ask her about what she's going to do about the economy, she's going to increase the capital gains tax. We don't have enough investment in this country to begin with. Now we're going to tax investment even more. She's going to give everybody paid sick leave. Now, let me ask you a question. When has paid sick leave ever created a job? How's that going to create jobs? And she said she's going to raise the minimum wage. Well, how does that help middle-class families in this country? Middle-class families aren't making the minimum wage. And when you raise the minimum wage, what you're going to do, in my opinion, is cost jobs, not create jobs. We have this argument going on in New York City right now in our neck of the woods, where they say they want to raise the minimum wage for folks who work in fast food restaurants to $15 an hour. Now, I got no problem with people working fast food restaurants making more money if the market bears it. But $15 an hour, you know what's going to happen? If that's spread across the country, you're going to walk into the McDonald's or the Burger King or the Wendy's or whichever one you may go to or like, and you're not going to be greeted by a person. You're going to be greeted by an iPad. And it's going to have the whole menu on there, and you're going to hit the buttons of which you want, and you're going to swipe your credit card through it, and then all of a sudden, the 2 or 3 people who are working there anymore, the ones who are cooking the food and bagging it, are going to see it on the screen, they're going to cook the food and bag it for you and walk it out and hand it to you. And all those people who worked there before, they're going to be gone. That's her biggest vulnerability. Hillary Clinton believes in bigger and more intrusive government, and I believe in the ingenuity of the American people and in the work ethic that they put into their job each and every day. I want people, again, to believe that in this country, that opportunity exists. I'll tell you, Mary Pat and I went to college together. When we were graduating, I graduated in '84. Of course, she's younger. She graduated in 1985. And we weren't worried about getting a job. We were worried about which job we were going to pick. Which of the jobs we were being offered was going to be the best for us going forward. We have a 21-year-old son now who's going to be a senior this fall at Princeton University. Now, he goes to a good school, and you would think he's pretty confident. He's worried. He's worried about if he's going to get a job. He had to work hard to get a summer job. And his friends had to work hard to get summer jobs. I don't want my son living in America where no matter how good his education is, no matter how hard he works, he can't get ahead because there's some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. who's picking the winners and losers. I want the winners and losers to be picked by the American people through their ingenuity and their effort. And so I think that's her biggest vulnerability, because I don't think the American people, after 7 years of Barack Obama's big government, think this worked out all that well. And I don't think they want a third term of Barack Obama, and that's exactly what Hillary Clinton will be. So I think that's her biggest vulnerability, and that's what we'll fight her on in the fall of 2016, amongst some other things, I'm sure, that we'd be able to bring up, especially after the news today. Yes, sir.
Well, being you brought up Hillary Clinton, I got a good. No, you're right. I apologize. Being she brought up really Hillary Clinton, I happened to be watching Fox News this afternoon in the 5, and they asked a very interesting question today. And Kristen Matthews is the one that presented the question to Debbie Barry Schultz or whatever her name is. Now, I want to ask you this question because knowing you, I know you got an answer. There's two people that are in contention for the Democratic Party today, right? Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, right? Yep. Hillary Clinton identifies herself as a Republican, correct?
No, Democrat.
I mean a Democrat, right? Oh my God. Wash my mouth out. Slap me. Do something. Okay, she's a Democrat, right? Bernie Sanders says he's a socialist, correct? So they ask her, what's the difference between Bernie and her? Because he's a socialist and she's a Democrat, but they're both running as Democrats. What's the answer to that question?
I got to tell you the truth. I don't think there's a dime's worth of difference between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. And I will tell you, you listen to her now, she's going so far to the left, that it's going to be hard to see her pretty soon. Right? I mean, the bottom line is that Mrs. Clinton is for higher taxes, bigger government. She is for this Iran deal. So she's for a weak American foreign policy, a diminishing of our military forces. She's for lessening our ability to be able to have good intelligence capability around the world to fight terrorism. I mean, the fact is that I don't really think it makes a darn difference whether they nominate from a philosophical perspective, whether they nominate Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton. And so, you know, fact is that the Democratic Party has a problem. Their problem is that Elizabeth Warren has taken over that party. That's who's taking it over. And they're all running to be just like Elizabeth Warren. I heard Hillary's announcement speech in New York City. I thought to myself, man, I didn't know Elizabeth Warren was running. I thought she said she wasn't. So, you know, Hillary will try to convince you come the general election that she's a centrist Democrat. That's who's going to try to convince you. That's the same thing Barack Obama tried to convince everybody too, isn't it? And he don't look like much of a centrist to me. So, no, I don't see any difference between the guy who calls himself a socialist and the woman who calls herself a Democrat. And I would defy any Democrats to tell you the difference between their positions on the issues. If there are, it's just a few, and it's not going to matter to the majority of the American people. So. Is he a stalking horse for her? What was that? Is he a stalking horse? Is he a stalking horse for her? No, I think he's trying. You know, listen, I'm from New Jersey, and my mom's Sicilian, so I'm going to use this word. I think he's there to give her agita. I think that's what he's there to give her. I think.
Texas, I think he's a stalking horse.
You think he's a stalking horse? We're going to see what happens. I don't know what he is, but right now, he's her competition. And it's going to be interesting to see how she reacts to it. And right now, I think she reacts to it by moving to the left. And that's not good. Yes, ma'am.
You kind of touched on this before in regards to marijuana. My daughter has intractable epilepsy, and we've been trying to get medical marijuana or even cannabis oil, which has no THC, doesn't make her high, and we can't get it. I have a card here in Iowa. They passed a law that doesn't do anything for me. Where do you stand federally on this?
Well, listen, this is a decision that I think on medical marijuana needs to be made state by state. Now, in New Jersey, we have a medical marijuana law, and I've amended that medical marijuana law since it was first passed by my predecessor, and he signed it at 3 o'clock in the morning, the morning I was getting sworn in as governor, so leaving me a little favor, you know, to say, here, you figure out how to do this. Good luck. That's because I beat him. He was a little angry. And I've since amended the law to deal with exactly what you're talking about with your daughter, where we now make certain products, edibles and oils, available in New Jersey for young children who need to deal with this. Now, in New Jersey, we've made this a very strict medically based program. Doctors have to register with the Department of Health. You have to go and see 2 doctors to confirm what it is, and we have a limited set of illnesses that you're allowed to get this for. You know, we don't want people just coming and claiming they have a migraine headache, right? Then all of a sudden, hey, they may still have a migraine headache, but they feel a lot better. But for children, we want to be very careful that one's a pediatrician and that the prescriptions get written the right way, because we want to make sure we protect our children from any harm. But in New Jersey, we have that program, and we have a program that deals with children as well. And, you know, go on our website in the Department of Health and see where it goes, and if we can help you in New Jersey, come on to New Jersey, and we'll help. I know you live in Iowa, but you know the fact is, at this point, I can't do anything on that program from my perspective. Even as president, I think that these are things that need to be decided. We're letting states do it. Excuse me, as a medical basis, and I don't have a problem with folks doing it on a medically based program. I don't want it used recreationally, but for medical purposes, it's helpful for certain adult illnesses, and it's helpful for certain pediatric illnesses. And where it's helpful and a doctor prescribes it, then I have no problem with them doing that. I wouldn't have approved the program that my predecessor approved. And we tightened it, made it stricter, but then also expanded it to deal with the particular problems that they didn't put in the first bill, which was about kids and kids' access to it. So we have that in New Jersey, and I would have no problem to see that happen in other parts of the country, as long as it's done in a strict medical way and it's not a cover for recreational use.
Given the recent publicity on Planned Parenthood, I've got a 2-part question for you. One, would you support defunding the federal part of Planned Parenthood, and does it make you rethink your position as pro-choice?
Well, let me start off by, this is great. I'm so glad he asked this. I am not pro-choice. No. I am the first pro-life governor ever elected in the history of the state of New Jersey. And you don't have to... in fact, I'm the first pro-life person elected to any statewide office in New Jersey, United States Senate or governor. They told me there's no way I could get elected as a pro-life person. Not only get elected, I got reelected. And as far as defunding Planned Parenthood, you also don't have to take my word for it. I defunded Planned Parenthood in New Jersey 6 years ago. We defunded it in my first budget when I was governor, and I have vetoed Planned Parenthood funding 7 times since then. And listen, these videos are incredibly disturbing. No matter what your position is on abortion, I'm pro-life, and they're disturbing to me. But I think, as you mentioned, that even if you're pro-choice, it has to be disturbing to think that doctors are talking about killing children in a particular way in order to harvest the body parts in the best possible way to create the most value. Now, even if you're pro-choice, I can't imagine you're for that. I can't imagine you're for killing children in a particular way so that certain body parts are preserved and intact because they're more valuable. What are we doing? And why is the government funding that organization, the federal government funding that organization, to the tune of $500 million in tax dollars a year? I'll be very clear with you. I've stood up and taken the abuse in New Jersey for defunding Planned Parenthood for the last 6 years, and if I'm president of the United States, we will defund Planned Parenthood. There's no question about it. Yes, sir.
Thanks for taking the call, Governor. Say, a question on climate change or global warming.
Yep.
It's no it's no secret that 97 or 98% of the world climatologists and scientists do believe in global warming, and it is man-made. Recently, you said regarding Sandy, you felt that climate change or global warming had contributed to the storm, but you did not know how much. What's your feeling? What are your stance on global warming? Should we be doing anything about it? And will that make you tougher to get the nomination because you had said that you did believe in
Well, listen,
climate
I do.
change?
Listen, the climate's always been changing, and it is changing, and man contributes to it. There's really no debate about that. The question is, what do you do? Now, the one place where I'll correct you is I didn't say that climate change contributed to Sandy. What I said was I don't know. I don't know enough about why Sandy came and where it came. I just wish it never did. But I don't know whether it was climate change that caused that or some other type of circumstance in the atmosphere. I don't know. But I've been very clear about the fact that I believe in climate change, and I believe that men and women contribute to it. What I don't believe in is cap and trade and these type of artificial governmental programs focused on one country to try to fix a problem that's a global problem. Let me tell you what we've done in New Jersey. There's something in the Northeast called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. All the northeastern states, from Maine to Maryland, were involved in this cap and trade program where we raised taxes on people's utility bills and used it to combat global warming. I pulled out of it because I said there's no way that one section of one country can make any difference in a global issue. And all I'm doing is making my state and the rest of the Northeast less competitive with the rest of the country by having higher electricity bills and higher heating bills for this reason. Let's go about trying to really deal with the problem. And so this is the way we tried to deal with it. In New Jersey, 53% of our electricity is generated by nuclear power. 53%. No contribution to, carbon when you're doing it with nuclear power. And it's a safe way to do it. We've been doing it in New Jersey for decades. Second, New Jersey, believe it or not, is the third largest producer of solar energy in the country, only behind California and Arizona. Now, let me tell you, don't go to this bar because everybody just heard it. But you go to another bar tonight and you get a bet with people, who's the third largest producer of solar energy in America? No, it's not. You're behind us. These guys from Texas, they think Texas is first in everything, don't they? Nah, you're behind California and Arizona, and us in New Jersey. We're the third largest producer now in our state of solar energy. We have now replaced some of our coal generating plants with natural gas, and we're building 3 new ones right now. Our energy bills have gone down 9% in the last 18 months in New Jersey because we have the Marcellus Shale right next to us in Pennsylvania, and we're getting a lot of really affordable natural gas coming into New Jersey now. The way you need to do this is to pursue a bunch of different policies to be able to make sure that you reach the goals you want to reach to keep our air clean. Without cap and trade, without the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, New Jersey today has already reached our clean air goals for 2020 because we went at it from a market-based approach. What makes the most sense? What will people invest in? What will they want to invest in? Not force them to invest in it, not force them to pay higher taxes. What will they choose? When private industry and New Jersey got together on solar energy, the market drove the growth in solar energy. And people said, geez, if I could get solar energy that's affordable and it's cleaner, works, it lights my house, it helps me, I'm going to use it. We want to make these things affordable and accessible. And then the American people will use them. That's why I'm for alternatives here as well. I mean, we need to have more alternatives. We don't need a cap and trade program, especially when the Chinese aren't going to participate. And, I've spoken to any number of folks who've gone over to China to do business, especially pharmaceutical companies in our state. And they said there are days when you cannot walk around in China without having a surgical mask on because of the amount of pollution they're putting into the environment. Unless we deal with this on a global basis, and the president can lead on these kind of things and try to persuade people, but I'm not going to be somebody who's going to be being for cap and trade or for additional taxes on this. Doesn't make sense. The market can deal with this if we encourage it and make it accessible and available. So to wrap up, just to make sure everybody's facts are straight in this, yes, I believe in climate change. The climate's always been changing. Our whole lives it's been changing, and it's going to continue to change. And human beings contribute to it. It's not the end of the world. Now let's figure out how we deal with these things. But I don't think we deal with it by raising taxes. I don't think we deal with it, by doing, a small sliver of either our country or the world, making ourselves less competitive with the rest of the world if the rest of the world's not going to come in with us to try to change the way we're putting pollutants into the environment. So that's my position, so we're clear. And on Sandy, I don't know what caused Sandy. I don't know whether it was climate change or what it was. All I know is it destroyed 365,000 homes in my state in 24 hours, and we're still working to rebuild nearly 3 years later, so I wish it had never happened. Whatever caused it, I wish it would have gone the other way. But thank you for your question. Yes, ma'am, in the back. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to think that we have the highest wind turbine and wind energy. Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
I've seen them as I've driven around Iowa.
Huge monsters.
Yeah.
I am a public school teacher. I came from a home where neither one of my parents graduated from high school. Okay. Education really wasn't pushed. In fact, my dad was sort of worried about me getting educated because, I have nothing else going for me. So if I'm smart, I'm not going to get a good guy. So, all right. So here's my question. I know, right? So it wasn't pushed. Okay. I have gotten, obviously, a bachelor's, I'm a teacher, a master's, I'm going to get my PhD. I teach in a public school, and I realize that's going to make me a target for everyone, so please don't hit me. So here's what I'm asking. Okay, I understand that vouchers, I have 3 children, one went to a private school, the other 2 went to public schools with me in Waterloo. Okay, so I see the merit in both, so please don't misunderstand that. I said, but here's my issue. You said, by your own words, and I am too, that you are pro-life, correct?
Yes, I am.
Which means even when they're not babies, they count, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so here's where I'm all fuddled. Because if they matter as babies, so do my students at East High School matter as adolescents.
Sure do.
And if you come from a home like I did, where you don't have parents who are willing to send you to a voucher school or private education like I could afford for my child, as she needed it. Okay, so I see both sides. Please understand that. Okay, but assure me that my students at East, who come from homes like mine, where they were not encouraged to be intelligent, where they weren't encouraged to work hard, okay? How are you going to level the playing field for them? Because they count too.
Sure they
Just
do.
because they're not babies doesn't mean they don't. Because pro-life means we love them from the time they're conceived until they
listen,
die.
I got to tell you the truth. You definitely do not need to lecture me about what pro-life means.
No, I know, but I mean, sometimes that
so-
gets confused for people, and I'm not
No, it's not
attacking you.
confused. It's not confused for me. And let me explain it to you now. I hear you. We spend more money on the public schools in this country than any country in the world. And in my state, for instance, we spend more money on public schools than any state in the nation. The average spend in the public schools in New Jersey is $17,700 per pupil per year.
We're 5 here.
Okay, $17,700. So when you ask me whether or not I understand how important it is to keep the playing field level for public school students, we're spending $17,700 per pupil per year for the public schools in New Jersey. What I want is equal opportunity for every kid too. And I'm not looking to get rid of the public schools by any stretch. You know which public schools I'm looking to get rid of? The bad ones. The ones that can't compete. The ones that can't figure out how they're going to motivate kids. Now, I know that we need a very different approach to education in this country for the reason you just mentioned.
Right.
Which is every home is different. And certain neighborhoods are different. And we need to have schools that adjust to those things. In some places in our country, I think in most, we need a longer school day and a longer school year. Even here in Iowa. I doubt we're really working on the agrarian calendar anymore, right? I mean, the whole school system and school calendar was based upon the agrarian calendar, right? We had to get the kids out so they go and work the farms. I don't know how many of your kids are going out to work the farms after this.
True.
Because guess what? If they're not working them in Iowa, you can
They're
be
not
darn
working
sure they're
anywhere
not
else.
working them in New Jersey.
Right.
All right? So we need to have a longer school day and a longer school year to adjust to some of the problems you're talking about.
Right.
Because in some of our challenged urban areas in particular, we have families that are one-parent families or no-parent families.
Or
We
they
have
live with
some,
aunties or foster care.
right, and some where, in fact, what's going on is we've got parents who are working 3, 4, or 5 jobs to try to keep a roof over people's heads. And so who's home for that child when that child gets home to urge them to do their homework? I know with Mary Pat and I, if we're not on our kids,
Right. They're not doing it.
right, do your reading. I mean, this summer has been a nightmare for us, right? I'm running for president of the United States, and I'm trying to get, with Mary Pat, our 14-year-old and our 12-year-old to do their summer reading.
How's that working?
Yeah, well, just okay. The only
I'm a
good,
literacy teacher,
the only
so come
good,
on, tell me how that's
the only good news is there's still 40 days left till they start school, so we got time
Work that
for them
ankle,
to finish
buddy.
for them to finish the 3 books that they got to read each. It shouldn't be that hard, but it is.
Right.
They're getting there. I know. They're not there yet, though.
Ask them questions. Make sure and ask them questions.
So here, let me tell you about student involvement. Mary Pat reads the book.
So you can ask them, yeah.
Yeah.
As parents, that's
So you
what
can't
helps.
throw the high hard one by her, So how's the book? It's okay. Really? Oh, I'm really enjoying it. And then she starts asking specific questions about chapter 7, and all of a sudden,
They're perking up.
the wall comes down.
Right.
It's bad news. What we need to do in this country, and it doesn't matter whether it's public school or parochial school or private school, we need to have everybody competing with each other, and we need to craft the education, and that's why I want it done locally. You're going to know much better in your school district how to deal with each individual school, if you're permitted to do it, to get the maximum growth in the potential of each one of those children. Money is not the problem in the United States in most places. The problem is that we're not adjusting to what we know is true. So for instance, why do I prefer some charter schools in the cities in New Jersey? Because they have the work rules that permit a longer school day and a longer school year.
But are they held to the same, IEP and those
Sure.
kind of, because
In
in
our
Iowa,
state-
they're not.
See,
In
in-
Iowa, it's a different
yeah.
thing. So we can't, if they take vouchers away from us and send them to a school that doesn't meet the requirements, that to me is brutally unfair to my
Well,
students.
of course, and by the way, it would also be brutally stupid for a parent who has a special needs kid to send them to a school that's not going to have an IEP and not going to have the special programs that are available to them in the public school. Let me end with this, because I don't want to get in a debate with you about this, except to say this. I'm a product of the public schools in New Jersey. I went to
turned out
public
okay.
school. I turned out just fine. But here's the thing. I'm not indicting the public schools. Teachers in the public schools deserve a union as good as they are, and they don't have one. Because the goals of union leadership are often very much at odds with the goals of the everyday teacher in the classroom and the desires of the everyday teacher in the classroom. And so my point on public education is that we need to make it better for everybody, not by throwing more money at it, but by making it crafted to the individual needs of those particular children in those schools, buildings, in those broader neighborhoods, and then those larger communities. And I honor teachers who do their job really well. And I'd like to see those teachers paid more. In fact, the school contract that I negotiated in the city of Newark, which is one of our worst school districts, and the state, so bad the state had to take it over, we negotiated a deal where teachers get merit pay. And if they show not improvement as against the state average, but improvement within their own school.
Right. Value added.
Right. They show value added, they get more money. Teachers in Newark are going to make a lot more money now than a lot of teachers in a lot of other places in the state. But what they gave up in return was the idea that there's going to be automatic raises every year, no matter what your results are. We have to come to some type of agreement in this country about this enormous pot of money we spend on education, and how do we get the better bang for our buck on it. And so it's not, for me, school choice is just another tool, not to replace the public schools, but to supplement the public schools, and quite frankly, in some really bad places, to create competition for those public schools so that they worry about their existence. Because if they worry about their existence, they got two choices: get better or go extinct. And so for me, I want to see our children get the best access to education no matter what. But on vouchers and choice, I want to make sure that every parent has the choice to do that if they want. You had the ability to make that choice for a child of yours that really needed it. Mary Pat and I have sent, just so you know who makes the decisions in our house, I'm a product of the public schools. Mary Pat went to parochial school, K-12. We have 4 children. They all go to parochial school. All right? So, I'm telling it like it is, but I don't always get my way. The fact is, though, we had the wherewithal to make the choice to send them. I don't think it should just be for us. There could be parents who say, you know what, I really want my children to have a religious education along with their day-to-day education. They should be able to make that choice regardless
And as
of
long
what
as,
they're...
as long as, I guess, Governor Christie, my concern is as long as they're held to the same standards that we in the public education are, I am completely in agreement with that, because like I said, my daughter went. I mean, you have to, if you have the ability, I respect that, because I did that. I am not by any means.
But I want everybody to have the ability to do that if they want.
But I have children in my school who have parents like mine.
Right.
So they don't count? I mean, who's
No,
going
it's
to
not that they don't
protect
count.
them? And
No,
that's
no,
my fear.
Wait a second.
That's my
Why
fear.
do you... But here's what I don't understand. When I say I want to give people choice and that I want to continue to spend a lot of money on public education, why is it that you say that I think they don't count? I'm authorizing the expenditure in my state of the average of $17,700 per pupil per year. I mean, everybody should count that little.
No.
Right? I mean, seriously. So my point is, by saying there should be choice for everybody, doesn't make anybody count less. It means that if you believe, if the parents believe, if the guardians believe that a parochial education or a private education is the best path for their particular child, I trust parents more than I trust anybody else in this circumstance. And for the parents who aren't involved and can't give the kind of motivation or decision making, then we have to have a robust, strong public school system that makes the most out of those children as well.
Right.
We're investing in that in New Jersey, and we don't need to stop investing in it. So the guy behind you is like raising his hand, is really
I'm
anxious
sorry,
to
I'm
get the
sorry, I'm
microphone
sorry.
from you. So
I'm sorry,
thank
I'm
you, though,
sorry.
for it, and thank you for the question. It's an important issue. Yes, sir.
I just want to say thank you for coming to Iowa. I'm here to volunteer for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I believe in your stand in a lot of areas. My question to you, Governor Christie, is the polls right now, and you coming in late, and Donald Trump being on top, and the comments he made about John McCain and our country and not being an American hero. I know how you stand on that, but my question is, what can we do to better our troops when they come back from war, from PTSD to saluting them, to every time I see someone with their uniform on, to say, how are you doing, sir? Thank you for defending our country. That's what's important to a lot
Sure
of
is.
Americans. It's not about Hillary Clinton. It's not that. It's about your stand. Because right now, I guess you're kind of at the bottom of the polls, but people don't understand. It's early in the race, and I'm proud to say that I'm pushing for you all the way.
Well, thank you. And a few things. First off, on the men and women of our military, there's been a lot of things going on in this country that hasn't been fair to those folks. We promise the men and women who volunteer for our military that we're going to take care of their health care for the rest of their lives. And yet, we have a Veterans Administration that has not lived up to that promise. And in fact, has not told those men and women in uniform and retired men and women from uniform the truth. Fake waiting lists and awful kind of stuff that went on at the VA. So one of the things that I think we have to do in the next administration is any member of the military who is retired member of the military, honorably discharged from the military, they have their veterans card. They should be able to go to any doctor or any hospital in this country, present that card, and get medical treatment at that place that we pay for. That's what we promised them. And we can't make them wait until we get the VA fixed for them to get the medical care and attention that they need, deserve, and have earned by putting their lives on the line for us. So I would change that system to make that card universal. Anywhere you go in the country, present that card. One of our veterans gets the treatment they deserve on the day that they need that treatment, and not wait. Second, I would hire, as Secretary of Veterans Affairs, the very best executive of a hospital system in the country that I could find. We don't need a retired general in charge, okay? What we need is somebody who knows how to run a medical system, because that's what the VA has become. It's become a medical system. So let's find the very best hospital executive we can find in the country to go there and straighten this mess out. But do the card stuff first so that we don't make our veterans wait till we fix it. We're always going to need veterans hospitals, because they provide some specialized care for our veterans that they're going to need. But we need to get them straightened out, and we can't have people waiting. I'll tell you about two things I've done in New Jersey that will let you know about my commitment as governor to veterans, and it'll give you a window into where I'll be as president. One of the programs that I'm proudest of that we've done in New Jersey is something called Vets for Warriors. And what this is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week hotline that we established at Rutgers University Hospital, an 800 number for any vet in the country to call if they're having mental health issues. And what they'll find on the other end of that phone is a trained veteran on the other end of the phone to talk to them about their mental health issues and to refer them to a mental health professional if they want to go to one. Now, this program got started in New Jersey, and we partnered with the Department of Defense to do it, and it's been used extensively across the country by veterans who are having trouble like PTSD and other mental health issues when they come home. Amazingly, this May, we heard from the federal government that they were canceling the program for reasons that I've still not gotten a sufficient explanation for. We tried to get the money put back into the federal budget. It didn't. And so I went in June, near the end of our budget year, when we're preparing this year's budget that started July 1st. And I went to the two Democratic heads of the legislature. I have an all-Democratic legislature, by the way. 24-16 in the Senate, 48-32 in the lower house, which means they do not wake up every day saying, how can I make the governor's day better today? But I went to these two gentlemen and I said, listen, you know this program? It's going to cost $3.3 million to continue it. I want to put that in the budget. I want the taxpayers of New Jersey to keep this program going. I do not want veterans to dial that 800 number and get a disconnected line. And to their credit, my Democratic leaders in the legislature, they never blinked or hesitated for a moment. They said, you're absolutely right, Governor. We have to do it. And so starting October 1st, the taxpayers of New Jersey will be footing the bill for any veteran around the country to pick up the phone and make that phone call. And I know that there's nobody in New Jersey who's going to object to that because of the contribution our veterans have made, and that the knowledge that every veteran who commits suicide in this country represents a failure on the part of the American people and the American government to help that man or woman get over the scars that we created by sending them over to combat. Second thing is, on the card business, we're starting that in New Jersey, but we're going to get ahead of the federal government, who has started it a little bit, but in a really kind of difficult, truncated way. We're going to make it very easy. We're partnering with our trauma centers in our state, $5 million from the state government, and they're going to match it with philanthropic dollars. And any veteran in New Jersey who is denied care at a veterans hospital on the day they ask for it can come to one of our trauma centers, present their card, and they will be assured of same-day care in one of those trauma centers. Because I don't want any vet in New Jersey to think that they're not going to be able to be taken care of if they live in our state. Third thing is, we had a home in the southern part of our state for homeless vets. Vets who come home and for whatever reason become homeless. It was called Veterans Haven South. We were closing one of our state psychiatric institutions, happily, in the northern part of our state. Some folks came to me and said they wanted to sell it. And I said, I had a better idea. Let's create a place for homeless vets in the north part of our state. And so we now have Veterans Havens North, which is on the same campus as a drug and alcohol treatment center. And the deal I made with the Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center is you can stay on the state property in the state campus, but in return you have to promise to give free of charge to our veterans who need it drug and alcohol counseling. Because a lot of these problems come from drug and alcohol abuse after they come home. And so now we have Veterans Haven South and Veterans Haven North. And on Veterans Haven North, we have this drug and alcohol rehabilitation center and facility that's available for those vets to be able to go and get the treatment they need so that they can leave Veterans Haven. And they can leave clean and sober and ready to start their life over again. We owe these men and women at least that. And the last thing, as to my friend Donald's comments about John McCain, I wasn't going to get into all that, except to say this. John McCain is an American hero, period. Stop. That's it. That's it. All right, my staff says I can take one more question, which means I will take two. And the reason is I want them to know who is still the boss here. This young lady right there.
Do you plan on giving southern states control of their borders?
No, I don't. I intend on the United States of America, for the first time in a long time, controlling its border. All right? It's not the southern states border. It's the border of the United States of America. And I understand southern states being frustrated by the fact that the federal government hasn't done what they said they were going to do, that this federal government doesn't enforce the federal immigration laws against sanctuary cities, that this federal government hadn't done the things they needed to do along the 2,000-mile southern border to be able to secure it so that folks can feel secure in the southern states. But let me tell you what I'll do as president. 4 things to secure the border. First, we'll build a wall or a fence in the particular places where it would be effective and needed. Let us please be careful of anyone who says they're going to build a 2,000-mile wall on the southern part of the United States and get the Mexicans to pay for it. All right? Now, I love Donald, but, you know, come on, man. This is not The Apprentice, all right? It's not the way this works. You can't look at the president of Mexico if he's not paying for the wall and say, you're fired. You know, it's not the way it works. So should we have a wall or a fence in certain spots? Absolutely, where it's effective and where it works. But a wall across the entire border isn't cost effective and won't be effective in keeping people out, because I have to tell you the truth. In human history, I've never seen a wall that a determined human being couldn't get over, under, or around. So let's not kid ourselves with the easy answers here. We got to demand more than 10-second answers on some of these really big problems our country faces. Second, we need to make sure we get more FBI, DEA, and ATF agents partnered with the Border Patrol to interdict the criminal activity coming across the border, whether that's drug running or gun running. We need to have them working together and have more of them working together in order to be able to keep some of the criminal conduct that's coming across the border from being lessened significantly. Third, we need to use the electronic technology we have. We need to use drones and cameras in some of the more difficult parts of the border, where it's tougher to get human beings there on a regular basis. Let's monitor those with drones and with electronic cameras so that then we can then put folks in those areas when there's a problem and people are making their way over the border. We can't have people at every 15 feet in the border, but we can have drones and we can have cameras in those places that are able to tell us in real time where some of the problems are, and then we can deploy Border Patrol agents and other law enforcement folks there to try to keep the border secure. Fourth, finally, and most importantly, is E-Verify. We need to require that every employer in this country use E-Verify to make sure that who they're hiring are actually citizens or are legal residents of this country and eligible to work. I have to tell you, I've met lots of undocumented folks in my state during the time I've been governor. Not one of them has ever said to me that they came to the United States to vote. They all say they come to work. That's why this path to citizenship stuff is nonsensical. These folks didn't come here to vote. They came here to work. Now, if we make sure that the only way you can get a job in this country is if you come here legally, then we're doing the right thing by our country and our workers in this country, and we're doing the right thing by these folks, because oftentimes these businesses hire these folks because they'll work for cheaper, and it increases the business's profit margin. Well, what I would do is if you don't use E-Verify and you hire people here legally, you will have a fine that's so large that it will wipe out any profit margin you have for hiring illegal, cheaper labor. That will stop people from coming over the border. Those four things together will secure our border, and finally the United States will secure its southern border, so Arizona, California, New Mexico, Texas don't have to worry about doing it themselves, because that's lawlessness then. We need the national government to establish and maintain our national borders. Last thing I'll tell you about this is this, so you know where I'm coming from on immigration. The Republican Party has been characterized as an anti-immigration party lately. We're not. Everybody in this room, I suspect, came here at one point in their lineage from another country. Now, my grandfather was born on the boat coming from Sicily to the United States. Think about what that means. That means when my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother's ticket was called in Sicily, that they could come legally over to the United States, my great-grandmother was 9 months pregnant, and she got on that boat. 9 months pregnant, she got on that boat. That's how desperately they wanted to come to America when their number was legally called for them to come here. And she gave birth to I can't imagine what that was like. She gave birth to my grandfather on that boat. And he was made an American citizen when they landed at Ellis Island. My mother used to tease her father mercilessly about this. She used to say, "Dad, you're nothing. You're not Italian. You're not American. You were born in the middle of the ocean. You're nothing." I don't have a lot of memories of my grandfather because he passed away when I was 9 years old, but I remember that. When my mother used to tease him, I never saw him get angrier than that. He would get all red in the face. He would say, "Don't you say that in front of my grandson. I'm an American. They made me an American when I got to Ellis Island." He was so proud. His father was a Mason who came and helped to build Newark, New Jersey and Jersey City, New Jersey. And my grandfather became a Mason. And he helped to build those things too. They came the right way. They came legally. And they helped to literally build this country. We don't ever want to stop that from happening. We want people to come to America, all people, to come to America legally, to help make us a bigger, broader, more diverse, more exciting country. We've been doing that since our founding. So let's do our job. Let's secure the border as a national effort. Let's make sure that people who are here legally are not being employed, and we can do it. And then let's make sure that we have a robust legal immigration system that still gives people around the world hope that America is the place to come when you have a great idea. America is the place to come when you're willing to work hard, but your country's not giving you the opportunity. Because you come here, you're willing to work hard, you're going to get the opportunity to do it, but we got to do it legally. So that's how we should do it.
Great answer. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am. You're right over here. Oh, Phil's got one for you. How about you?
I just wanted to know, how do you feel about gun control?
Well, this is the way I feel about gun control. I think we're spending too much time in this country focusing on people who buy guns for self-defense, who buy guns for hunting, or buy guns for collecting, and we're not spending nearly enough time on arresting, convicting, and putting in jail criminals who are using guns to make our streets unsafe. We don't need more laws. We don't need more laws in this country than we have right now. We need more enforcement. I can tell you, when I was U.S. Attorney in New Jersey for 7 years, the President and the Attorney General said to us, we're starting a program called Project Safe Neighborhoods. And your job is to go out and arrest and convict as many felons in possession of a handgun as you can in this country. Because once you've committed a felony, you don't have the right to possess a handgun. Those are the people we need to go off the streets. They're not going into gun stores and buying guns. They're buying them on the black market. And then they're scratching off the serial number so we can't trace them. These are criminals. That's where we should be focused. And I will tell you this, as president, I'm going to appoint an attorney general who is going to make making our streets safer a top priority. It's disgraceful what's happening in Chicago. Disgraceful. The murders that are happening there. The federal government should be intervening in a serious way to do that. When I was U.S. Attorney, Camden, New Jersey, was considered the most dangerous city in America. And I brought in federal resources as U.S. Attorney, the FBI, the ATF, and the DEA, and the Marshal Service, to say, let's work with local police to get these guns and these drug dealers off the streets who are using guns. We were able to decrease the crime rate in Camden significantly because of those efforts. There's no reason why the federal government shouldn't be doing that, but instead we're wasting our time having discussions about magazine capacity size. I vetoed that in New Jersey. They wanted to reduce it from 15 to 10. I vetoed it, and here's why. They said, well, the government doesn't care about those 5 lives it would save. I said, okay, so we're saving those 5 lives, but under your philosophy, the other 10 don't matter. If each bullet taken out of the magazine saves a life, then why don't we go to 0? If you really care about preserving life. That's not what it's about. It's about a headline. It's about a headline for a politician to make some of you feel someday like, well, maybe he's trying or she's trying to make me a little safer. Here's the way we make folks safer. Enforce the laws we have, enforce them aggressively against criminals, and let's get out of the business of collectors and hunters and people who are law-abiding citizens who want to have a firearm to defend themselves and their families. That's the way we should go about this problem in the United States. If we go about it that way, I'm for anything that will make our streets safer. I'm for anything that will preserve the lives of our children. But more laws on the books will not be what will do it. Not at all. So that's my view on how we should deal with it. All right. 2 things. First, let me thank you for coming. People in New Jersey ask me all the time when I come home, all right, so you're running for president. What's it like to run for president in Iowa and New Hampshire? What's it like?
Wonderful.
Yeah, darn right. Here's what I tell them. I say, listen, if you're cynical at all about politics in America, and plenty of us are cynical sometimes about politics in America, and we should be, I tell them to come here and come to New Hampshire. Because 7 months before anybody's going to vote, 150 people are in this establishment tonight on a Friday night in July to listen to the governor of New Jersey as one of 17 candidates for the Republican nomination for President of the United States. If you don't come away with more faith and hope and trust in your government and in your democracy after this, then nothing's going to change you. So it's incredibly invigorating for me to be able to come and see all of you and see how engaged and involved you are, how good all your questions are, how passionate you are about the questions you ask and the positions you hold. That's a really great thing. And as somebody who's leaving home a lot now, to do this, it makes me feel a lot better about the sacrifice that we're making to offer ourselves up for this position, because all of you are engaged in the sacrifice also to be well informed, smart voters who are going to make your decisions in the caucuses at the beginning of February. So I thank you for that and for showing up tonight. Second, I just want to make one suggestion to you, respectfully, as you make this decision, because you got 17 people to cull through, and this is not going to be an easy decision for anybody to have to make in terms of what you're going to do. You go on my website, and as the Weekly Standard said today, the most detailed set of plans for America that anybody has put out in this race. Go look at all of them. I encourage you to do that. It's chrischristie.com. It's easy. You won't be there for all that long, but you'll get a lot of information about where I want to take the country. But if that's all I tell you, if that's all you know, then I would respectfully suggest to all of you that you can't make a decision about who to vote for or whether to vote for me. Because we're not going to be able to anticipate every problem that's going to come across the president's desk. No matter how many proposals I put out there, no matter how many questions you ask me, and then we put the transcript up on the website, you're not going to get everything. There's going to be stuff that's going to happen that we're just not going to know about. We couldn't have anticipated. So then what happens? You got to trust the person who's sitting behind that desk. You have to know who they are. So let me end tonight by telling you who I am. We are all a product of our parents, right? For good or for bad sometimes. We're all a product of our mom and our dad. I'm the product of an Irish father and a Sicilian mother. Now, for those of you who don't understand what that dynamic is like, let me just say this to you. I'm the oldest child in that family, and at a very young age, I became expert at dispute resolution. I don't want to say that, it would be disrespectful, really, for me to say that my mom was argumentative. But I guess the best way to put it would be that my mom just never found an argument she didn't firmly believe wasn't worth having. And she set the rules in our house. My dad is a great guy. He's 82 years old. He's retired. He's following all this stuff really closely. We live streaming, Tim? Yes, sir. All right, so Dad's watching. I know he is. How you doing, Dad? Good to see you. He's at home watching in New Jersey. But I teased my father all the time that in the automobile of life, my dad was merely a passenger. Mom was the driver. She was judge, jury, and executioner. She set the rules. She was in charge in our house. And the biggest rule she set was, there is no suffering in silence in this house. She said, you got a grievance? I want to hear about it. You got a problem? I need to know about it or I can't help you. You're feeling badly? Tell me. We'll try to fix it. But don't come to me later and say, oh, well, I've been feeling bad for weeks, but I didn't tell you. She goes, I have no sympathy for that. I want to know. Now, I think she set this rule because she was the #1 user of the rule. She would lay her grievances out all the time. And when we got older and we could push back a little bit, we'd be like, Mom, stop already. Stop. I get it. All right. And she goes, no, no, no. Don't you tell me to stop. I need to get this off my chest. You're going to hear it right now. There'll be no deathbed confessions in this family, Christopher. You're going to hear it now. So we heard it, all of it. And it encouraged us to participate, if for no other reason than self-defense, Just you start pushing back with your grievances. I said I had a Sicilian mother because we lost her 11 years ago. My mom was a lifetime smoker. And on Valentine's Day of 2004, she was diagnosed with cancer, with lung cancer. And for any of you in this room who've had friends or family members who've gone through this, you know that that's a pretty tough disease and it can either go really slowly or really quickly. In my mom's case, it went really quickly. And I was U.S. Attorney for New Jersey at the time, and I was out at the end of April at the National Conference for U.S. Attorneys in San Diego. And my younger brother called me, and he said to me, listen, Mom's taking a real turn for the worse. They put her back in the hospital. And basically the doctors are telling us, if you want to see her again, you need to come home now. So I got on the red-eye flight that night. I flew home to New Jersey. I got in the car, drove to the hospital, and I went to my mom's room. Now, she started to get morphine. And for those of you who've gone through this, you know that's kind of the last stage of things. They're trying to make her comfortable. She's in a lot of pain. And so she's kind of in and out of things because it's a powerful drug. And eventually she kind of came to. I was sitting next to the bed. Now remember, I hadn't seen her for a week. But it was typical of my mother. There was no small talk, right? There was no, how are you? How was your trip? She goes, what day is it? I said, hi, Mom. How are you? Good to see you. Yeah, I'm back. It's Friday. And she said, what time is it? I said, it's 9:30 in the morning. She said, go to work. I said, hey, Mom, I just came home from San Diego. I flew all night. I wanted to come to see you. So I'm not going to work today. I said, Christopher, it is a work day. Go to work. Like, Mom, what are you afraid of not getting your taxpayers' money's worth today? Are you kidding me? Come on. I'm staying here with you. I'm spending the day with you. And she looked at me, she leaned over, she grabbed my hand, she looked at me and she said, Christopher, go to work. It's where you belong. There's nothing left unsaid between us. Outside the birth of our 4 children, it was the most powerful moment of my life. My mother was giving me permission to let her go. And at that moment, what I realized was that everything she had told me my whole life was right. She told me that, there should be no deathbed confessions. She said, get your grievances out there now. Let's talk about what we need to talk about. I trust you. I love you. We got to get that out there. And so at that moment, when she said to me, there's nothing left unsaid between us, she was right. She was right, so I did as I was told. I got up, I kissed her on the forehead, and I said, okay, Mom, I'm going to work. I'll see you later. And she said, good boy. And I got up and I left. And that afternoon, she went into a coma, and 3 days later, she died, and I never spoke to her again. Those were our last words to each other. And I have no regrets, because I lived my life the way she taught me. And darn if she didn't turn out to be right. See, that day, there were no grievances left to speak between us. They'd already been out there. But just as importantly, I knew how much she loved me. And she knew how much I loved her. And there was nothing left to say. And so I know that if my mom were still around right now to watch this circus that my life has become, she'd have a lot to say. A lot to say. But 2 things I know she'd say for sure. The first thing is she'd say to me, so, you running for President of the United States, Mr. Big Shot. Not a big shot with me, buddy. I changed your diaper. I know who you are. My mom would want me to keep my head on my shoulders and keep grounded. She wouldn't want this to change me. And the second thing she'd say to me is, if you're going to really do this, Chris, and you're going to go and ask these people for the most trust they can possibly give to anybody outside their family, which is to ask them to make you the President of the United States, then you better tell them everything you're thinking and feeling. Because in a trusting relationship, that's what we do. And so I'm running this campaign this way for 2 reasons. 1, because it's who I am, and I don't think I could change at this point. And 2, it's a tribute to her, because this is the way she'd want me to do it. And so I can go through all the different programs and answer all the questions and do all that, and I will. But the 4 most important promises I can make you, and the 4 that I can make you that I know are totally within my control, so I'm going to keep them, are these 4. If I'm President of the United States, you're never going to have to wonder what I'm thinking. You're never going to have to wonder what I'm feeling. You're never going to have to wonder what I'm willing to fight for. And you're never going to have to wonder how hard I'm willing to fight for it. Beyond that, we'll leave all the rest of it to what happens and what comes across the desk and what we're able to get done together as a country. But those 4 things I will bring to you every single day, because that's how I was raised and that's who I am. So as one of the most psychoanalyzed politicians in America, when I tell people to get the hell off the beach or sit down and shut up or any of those things that I say sometimes, and you're wondering, where's that coming from? It's her. Now you know, right? It's her. It's her fault, man. It's her. That's the way she taught me to be. So you need to know me. You need to know who I am. I'm running for President of the United States because I absolutely believe that that's the type of person we need now in this country more than ever before. Someone who's going to look at you in the eye and tell you the truth as he sees it. Someone who's willing to fight as hard as you need to fight to get the things done we need to get done. And someone who says what they mean and means what they say. I'm not complicated. I'm not. What you see is what you get. And I think that's the kind of president we need now.